Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast, presented by BetMGM. It is Tuesday, April 11th. Payoff Pitch comes your way every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday during the baseball season. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We're here 3 days a week. Looking forward to this slate. 15 gamer, myself, Sean Zerillo, and Anthony DeBundo. Good to have you with us. All right, fellas, we'll start with best bets. Some horses on the mound today. We'll find out if we're going to go underdog galore like we did on Monday. Again, I feel bad and like an unfinished product as far as hosting concerns, not mentioning Patrick Corbin yesterday. Congrats if you cashed on Patrick Corbin. So no more Patrick Corbin talk. That's now in the rear view. We turn our attention to Tuesday. Zerillo, best bet that you are targeting on this big slate. Everyone's in action.
Yeah, a lot of first five money lines that I like, both individually or as parlay pieces. The Yankees' first five line has moved up a bit closer to minus 190, but considering there's about 4 or 5 first five lines that I like here to mix around in parlays, I would say the Yankees up to minus 190, my favorite of the bunch. I have found a lot of value betting on Garrett Cole since the start of last season. I put in my article today in that June 2021 press conference where he admitted to using sticky stuff, basically all but admitted to it. Then you saw his spin rates drop over the rest of that season. Cole went 500 against the first five money line, cost you a few $100s if you bet it every game. Since the start of the 2022 season, he's won them 75% of the time. He's 24-8-6, 11.3% ROI if you bet that every single time. 2-0 to start this year. I've generally found that the market is hate fading Cole or doing something where they just don't like betting into him. And generally, I've found value at open betting on him. So the Yankees up to about minus 190 in a parlay for the first 5 innings, minus 182 straight. I think are both fine bets. About as significant of a pitching advantage as I could project for any team in any matchup. Roughly a 2.5 run projection in terms of an ERA number between Garrett Cole and Hunter Gaddis. That does pop up again on this slate with Jacob deGrom in his matchup, but it's a rarity to get a projection gap that wide between two starting pitchers. So generally when I see a number that wide, I do show value on a big first five favorite. And that is the case here, but I expect the number to be a little wider. I have it at minus 200.
Minus 190 as we speak at BetMGM. Hunter Gaddis is coming off a good start against Oakland. 6 innings of one hit ball. And you were on Gaddis, and as Zerillo mentioned, opening pitch available, actionnetwork.com, Action Network app. He breaks down projections and his picks for the day. Some good analysis in there. You were on Gaddis in a start against Seattle. Last week, you saw the edge, but Cole just jumps out too much.
Yeah, it's all matchup based. You know, I just like the Mariners defense against the Guardians defense against the Mariners in a low scoring game. Defense matters a little less when you're playing a team like the Yankees who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, unlike the Guardians. So very matchup dependent, but yeah, I just think a massive edge for Garrett Cole here.
Garrett Cole also, in 2 starts to Bundo, no home runs allowed to this point.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that, you know, with Garrett Cole, the biggest problem he's had, and I think part of the reason why you see the hate fading, besides the fact that he's a Yankee, is that when he tends to get blown up, he tends to give up homers in bunches, and people remember those things. They remember the blow up starts, which he certainly had a few. He very rarely doesn't have his best stuff. When he does, he tends to get rocked. And so that kind of inflates some of the perception and the numbers on him. But his biggest problem has traditionally been home runs. And the Guardians are one of the worst slugging and isolated power teams in the entire league. And that's why he dominated them twice in the playoffs last year. So I like this matchup. I agree with Sean. I also bet the Yankees first 5. My best bet is going to be at Citizens Bank Park tonight, over 7.5 runs, Aaron Nola and Jesus Luzardo. And I love both of these pitchers, 2 of my favorite pitchers probably in all of baseball, but this is purely weather-based. And I think the market is a little short on Citizens Bank Park tonight. Projected first pitch wind west-southwest, which is straight out to about right center. 14 miles an hour at first pitch, still going to be around 10 by 9 o'clock. 71 degrees at first pitch. That's a very favorable hitting environment. And I think that you will struggle to find a park besides Wrigley that's more wind affected than Citizens Bank Park. So I like the over 7.5. Again, like I like these pitchers a lot, but I just think that the market should be closer to 8 with the run environment at the bank being the way it will be tonight.
All right, very good. So a first 5 play, and then we've got an overplay Phillies Marlins from DeBundo. Let's find out if we're going to fade the public on this Tuesday. A lot of public sides, and it's sort of to Zerillo's point. If you like some first 5s, there are some stars on the mound today. You got Garrett Cole, Jacob deGrom, Shohei Ohtani is on the mound tonight for the Angels. We're going to look at Orioles athletics, and we actually highlighted this series yesterday, but Zerillo and BJ Cunningham chose to pass. The Orioles are getting close to 90% of the bets, very close to most of the money, if not all of it, for the Orioles to take down the A's. That is the big public side for today. Oakland plus 150 on the money line, Baltimore minus 185. Zerillo, you are, though, today into Baltimore, but a first 5 angle for us.
I am. I believe it's the first time we've had a chance to talk about Grayson Rodriguez pitching in the major leagues on this podcast. We talked about him a little bit from a AL Rookie of the Year perspective in the preseason's award podcast, but I'm very high on G-Rod immediately out of the gates. I think he can be a number 2 starter over the course of a full season, a sub 3.25 ERA. That's what I think he can carry over the course of a full season. He's going to have starts where he doesn't have his command, where he falls apart completely and gets blown up. But in the aggregate, I do expect him to be fairly dominant immediately. This kid has a high-level arm, one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. Command was the main concern, not only at the end of his minor league polishing, but also in spring training this year. It was the justification they used to send him down until Kyle Bradish got hurt in his start against the Rangers, and they had to bring him out to face Jacob deGrom. He pitched very well in that start against Jacob deGrom. After the first inning, he found his command. Going to be watching him closely. There's a bunch of young pitchers who come up and seem to have this tendency, when they're very talented, to lose their command completely for one inning every start. Something I remember very vividly about Noah Syndergaard. When Ohtani was first starting his major league career, he would do it a lot too. They just seem to have this one inning every start where the command is empty. They walk 3 guys, and if they get the double play and get out of the inning, they'll be fine. But if they don't, they may get blown up and give up 4 or 5 runs. So Grayson did that in his first start. I didn't watch a lot of his minor league career, but I am familiar with his skill set. Curious to see if he's going to be a guy who consistently has these moments from start to start where he's shaky, or maybe it was just a blip in his first major league inning. But Orioles up to about minus 185. We're at like Baltimore for today on the first 5 line. Pretty big pitching advantage. I give him over Kyle Miller.
Oakland, worst record in baseball at 2-8 entering Tuesday. They have been a good over team to this point in the year, but that might reflect what they're doing on the mound as opposed to at the plate. DeBundo, we fading the public today? Are we taking the Oakland A's or Baltimore?
Yeah, I don't have anything bets here on this game, but I will talk about Grayson. 5 pitches, all graded above average by Stuff Plus in his debut. Only pitch he was able to actually locate was the fastball. That's definitely a little bit of a concern in terms of, being able to locate the breaking balls too. That's really the next step for him. But very impressive. Anybody who has 5 pitches that are all above average is going to be a very, very, very good high-end ceiling talent. So I would be Orioles or nothing for me as well. Kyle Muller has had a decent start, but again, like we talk about in pitches being above average, he has 1 that he's thrown more than 6 times this year. That's graded above average, and that's his curveball. Fastball is really bad. So he's more of a command guy. And it used to be true that the Orioles were better against lefties. Now they're better against righties, just how the lineups changed. I miss those days. Used to bet the Orioles every time they played a lefty. But now not as much of a split difference for them. So I'm passing here.
Yeah, and they also changed their park too, where it suits them better to be more left-handed lineup and pulling the ball to a wall that they can actually reach instead of that abomination of a left field wall that we love to talk about in Baltimore. So it's hilarious in April trying to watch right-handed hitters pull something out of that park. Like it just seems impossible.
Underdogs were a theme of the podcast yesterday. Not as many dogs we like today. However, we do have a section in the pod where we try to target an underdog. Biggest dog on the slate today, Kansas City plus 220, visiting the Texas Rangers. Jacob deGrom on the mound. We will not go in that direction, though. Zerillo, we're going to try again to take down the Tampa Bay Rays, who are 10-0, first team to 10 wins. If you bet that in the spring training portion of the spring, you would have made out pretty well. They were plus 900, first team to 10 wins, and their schedule has been puppy poop to start the year. They've got Boston again, 1-0 shutout yesterday, and you're going to turn to the Red Sox as a dog.
Yeah, I mean, they still haven't even necessarily played a team that was guaranteed to finish over 500 this season. The Red Sox are decent, but that's a very tough division. So who knows? This is not necessarily even a 500 team that they're playing yet, but I do think the market is going to continue to overinflate on the Rays until they lose a game here. It's just one of those things where anytime you have a team who is very publicly on a winning streak or a losing streak, you see the market sort of overinflate into that streak because the books know that the public is going to come in and ride it and continue to ride it until it loses. But I do like the Red Sox here. I think they should be just a bit shorter on the line as road underdogs. I'm very high on Garrett Whitlock as a pitcher. We've seen him work out of the bullpen. We've seen him work out of the rotation. His longevity isn't going to be there probably for more than 5 innings. But on a per inning basis, I put him right with the number 2 starters already. You know, we talked about Grayson Rodriguez being in that tier for me. It's kind of a similar tier to where I rate the Luis Castillos of the world. That's sub 3.25 expected ERA, but still above 3 group. And Whitlock is already there for me on a per inning basis. McClanahan is a tier above. He's in that ace tier. He's in that 2.75 ERA type tier. But I don't think people would put Whitlock that close to McClanahan on a per inning basis. The key is going to be the bullpens. The Rays do have the bullpen advantage. The Rays have the advantage in a lot of spots in this matchup. But the Red Sox are just a bit too wide on the price line. So plus 154 would be my target. That's where you can bet Boston for 2-4 today. And like I said, there's no guarantee that we'll continue to bet against the Rays until they lose the game. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's more likely than not we're going to find value on them until it happens. So Boston, a plus 154, nothing I'm particularly in love with, but the value is definitely there.
If you missed it yesterday, Zerillo live on the show found that the Rays World Series odds were halved from where they were in spring training leading up to opening day. And that remains the case. At BetMGM, 12-1 to win the World Series. So not much has changed. Another win certainly helps. I will add too, and we talked a lot about Shane McClanahan down the stretch last year. His command was a bit iffy last start, 4 walks against Washington. And Garrett Whitlock did perform well in his final rehab start at AA Portland. This is his first start of the season. DeBundo, I think you have some interest in this game as well. Tampa and Boston. Can the Red Sox hand the Rays their first L of the year?
I certainly think they can. I'm going to bet the first 5 only here at plus 150. Whitlock is not nearly stretched out or built up enough. Globe reporter Alex Spire said Friday that he sat 93 to 95 in the first inning and then was sitting closer to 91 to 93 in the 3rd and 4th inning. And so that is a concern for me with his potential longevity here. And then, of course, as Sean mentioned, significant bullpen edge for Tampa Bay. So I'm only going to target the first 5. If you can have first 3 lines, I even think that's interesting because I agree. McClanahan concerns me with regards to his command issues that even in the first start, his first pitch strike rate was down pretty considerably. And so that's a little bit concerning for me. And I think that if he's consistently pitching from behind against this lineup, he could get into some trouble. It's funny, Sean talked about the pitching or the Rays' upcoming schedule. This is the next 4 starters that the Rays are going to see. Chris Sale, Corey Kluber, Jose Barrios, Yusei Kikuchi. So it's going to be some ugly underdogs that I think Sean's going to be betting if the Rays keep winning games. But it certainly will be interesting to see how long they can keep this streak going.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's about as good as it gets. And
Yeah.
then I mean, they're
high rolling like the greatest schedule to start a season ever potentially.
Yeah.
Detroit and Washington, the first 2 starts for McClanahan, as is the case for many Rays pitchers here to begin the season. A quick thought on the total. It's set at 7.5. I know we talked a lot about the Red Sox being an over team, Zerillo, early on. I know they're at the Trop again. 1-0 shutout yesterday. Do you think that's a fair line, 7.5?
Yeah, I have it at 7.4. It's difficult for me to get totals with good pitchers above 7.5 at the Trop. That's why I mentioned yesterday, seeing that total at 8.5, even with lesser pitchers, historically totals at 8.5 or higher at the Trop have gone under at a 55% clip and generated a consistent ROI. So anytime you see that 8.5 or higher at the Trop, you should perk up a little bit because there's a good chance you should be betting an under there. But 7.5 is probably about right for this park in almost any game.
Okay, before we wrap up, final bets for this Tuesday slate. Every team is in action tonight. We'll go to Zerillo, and the theme of the pod today, not underdogs, but first fives, and you've got a bunch more you want to give out.
Yeah, first five favorites. So just from a matchup optics perspective, the Cardinals' first five is a super obvious play. Cardinals, by far the number one offense in baseball last season against left-handed pitching. Kyle Freeland, pretty pronounced splits versus righties and lefties. An expected fit for his career, close to 5 against right-handed hitters. And the Cardinals can put out a lineup entirely of right-handed or switch hitting bats. So Cardinals should continue to smash left-handed pitching. Freeland has been good thus far. This is a nightmare matchup for him. So the Cardinals on the first five line, another one of these parlay pieces I like, the straight bet is gone at -140. So it's parlay basically or bust to about -155. The Mets and the Phillies.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in quickly?
Go ahead, Brenner.
I'm seeing a first five total of 6.5 because I was just going to ask you why not play the over in the first five, but that is wow, 6.5. And I know it's at Coors Field, but it's 6.5 runs. Holy cow.
That's sometimes, in the summer months, we'll see them get up to 7 at Coors when these totals get closer to 13. So they can get really high up there. I do not love betting the under 7s at Coors Field because it means the offensive environment is usually pretty jacked up that day. But we do get into those sometimes in the summer just because when it's comical to look at the first five market and see an under 7 at Coors Field, and then you look at a windy game at Wrigley and the full game total is 6.5. Like just the comedy of toggling between those on the odds board is kind of fun for me. But yeah, it's a pass for me on the total. I always look at the Cardinals first five team total in a situation like this. The number just wasn't there. I would need something closer to plus money. And I believe it was -120 on a 3.5. So no value there. Purely going to be Cardinals money line or pass for the first 5 innings. Hopefully it comes down and I can add a straight bet there as well. But yeah, just love that matchup purely from a scouting standpoint. The model likes it a little bit too. So happy to see the little line. The Mets and the Phillies today when I woke up, both bets that I added just after line movement last night. So I parlayed the Phillies first five last night at a very small edge. It's in a range where you can bet it straight today. I like them in either half up to about -160. Jesus Luzardo getting a ton of love. Fastball velocity come way back up. He's throwing as hard as any lefty starter, except for Shane McClanahan. He's like a couple of points on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball behind him. So right there with McClanahan in terms of velocity, may even surpass him at some point. But the Phillies do project better for me against lefties than righties. Have a lot of right-handed sticks. Kyle Schwarber actually hits lefties decently well. And the Marlins continue to be an embarrassment offensively. I know they're much better against righties than lefties, historically bad against lefties last season. But Aaron Nola has gotten roughed up. And I think the discrepancy with Luzardo pitching well thus far and Nola getting roughed up a bit thus far, I think it's brought the public perception of them closer together than where I have them projected, which is roughly a run apart in terms of an ERA. So the Phillies in either half seem like a value bet to me. And then the Mets as well, I added on the first five line today. Bet the first five over last night. I believe that's come at a range, but again, project about a run differential between David Peterson and Ryan Weathers. And the Mets got much better against left-handed pitching versus where they were last year. They also have Francisco Alvarez presumably hitting 9th for them, which gives them another bat against lefties. So the Mets project very well against lefties. The Padres kind of a neutral splits team for me. So pitching advantage, splits advantage for the Mets up to about -130 is where I'd put them first five.
All right, DeBundo, final bets before we get out of here.
Yeah, I almost never bet run lines, but I'm very, very, very tempted to lay 1.5 with the Cardinals tonight at Coors. I agree with Sean on that. I like to bet. The only time I'll really ever bet a run line is you'll see me on a road team with a higher total. course, it's all priced in, but just from a feeling point of view, I feel better about laying runs at Coors when I know that the offensive environment's going to be very good. And I do like
and
the
with a
Cardinals
road
tonight.
team getting 9 innings guaranteed as well.
Exactly. Right.
Yep.
So that's one that I'm contemplating playing, but a couple bets that I have made. I took an F5 under 4.5 at one book this morning in the Twins White Sox game. Pablo Lopez has added a sweeper, and it has been extremely effective. His fastball velocity is up as well. The sweeper 124 stuff plus first start, 114 second start, got a lot of whiffs on it, befuddled many hitters, looked really impressive. And he's a guy that I've always been a little lower on because I think he benefited from that park in Miami. But with the fastball velocity and the new pitch, he's definitely moved up a tier. Against Lance Lynn, I do expect the Twins to play a major league lineup today, which they did not yesterday. But I still like the under in that at 4.5. But you can also find at BetMGM over 3.5 minus 125. It's a decent middle opportunity for that to land exactly on 4. You have to lay a little bit of juice on both sides, minus 125 up to minus 140 on the 4.5. But I like the under 4.5 more. But again, like I said, if you want to come back with some of it on over 3.5 at BetMGM, you can. I also like the Cubs first 5 up to minus 120 with Hayden Wesneski. We bet him last week on this show. He gave up a couple of homers to the Reds at Great American Park. I'm not too worried about Wesneski, though. 4 strikeouts in 5 innings. The stuff looked good. The sweeper looked really good. He just got a couple times in a very friendly ballpark. Chris Flexen's a fly ball pitcher pitching at Wrigley Field with the wind blowing out tonight. I think that's a big issue for him. His stuff has not really been good. He's got more walks than strikeouts this year. Flexen's still a guy I'm not really buying into this season. And Wesneski, I'm also not really buying this Mariners lineup. I think it's overrated in the market off of last season. They performed pretty well down the stretch run, but especially against right-handed pitching with Teoscar hitting lefties so much better than he hits righties. Same with Suarez. They just don't really have a lot of depth in that lineup to hit the righties, even with Kelenic hitting a ball to the moon last night. And then the Pirates under is currently sitting at 8. If it gets back to 8.5, which it looks like it might, I would bet the under 8.5 between Keller and Javier, 2 pitchers I'm high on this season. But like I said, need the 8.5 to bet that. And then also it is Dinger Tuesday. So some of the picks I like, we talked Cardinals, Jordan Walker's plus 680 against a left-handed pitcher who gets rocked by them. Like Zerillo mentioned, Kyle Freeland. He's more than double the price of Nolan Arenado, which I found surprising given we know how hard he hits the ball. Walker, Jordan at 4-1. I mean, it almost doesn't matter who the pitcher is. Jordan at 4-1 against Keller and the Pirates in Pittsburgh. Pretty warm in Pittsburgh as well, so not a terrible hitting environment today. And then with the wind blowing out at Wrigley, the Cubs don't have a ton of thump in the lineup, but Patrick Wisdom at 3-1 is a bet that I like as well to home run today for Happy Dinger Tuesday.
I would like to give out Jordan Walker over 1.5 total bases plus 110.
Very good. And I'm sure Jordan makes you happy too there, Zerillo, right?
I mean, Jordan is just on a different level, folks. If you don't see this guy coming up with 2 runners in scoring position and producing every time, I don't know what you're watching at this point. He's automatic.
Aaron Judge is plus 200 to homer today in April, which is pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable.
By the way, mentioning the Pirates, I'm glad you mentioned Mitch Keller. If we end up getting Rich Hill and Mitch Keller every Monday and Tuesday on this podcast, we're gonna have a fun summer.
Just wait for Luis Ortiz. I'm putting that name on your radar now. I'm going to put it out there. Eventually he will start for the Pirates this season, and I'm going to be betting Luis Ortiz a lot.
Well, it could be an early night for Payoff Pitch. So many first 5s, you can get to bed early after most of these games get going.
You don't have to sweat the bullpens. It's more fun in a way.
Yeah, it's great. First 5 favorite money lines. What could go wrong? Everything should be great. Good stuff. Again, you can find Sean Zerillo opening pitch on the Action Network app, actionnetwork.com, full write-up for projections and picks for today's slate. Anthony DeBundo, thanks for stopping by. We are back on Friday for Payoff Pitch. We're here Monday, Tuesday, and Friday during the baseball season. Thanks for tuning in. Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm Brendan Glasheen. Enjoy, everybody, and we'll see you on Friday.